I'm a 34-year-old woman married working in finance. My younger sister, Rachel, is 29. We're close in that we talk often, see each other at family things, and grew up sharing a room, but we've always had a rough edge between us. She's impulsive, emotional, and lives for the moment. I'm more structured, I budget, I plan. We've clashed more than once, especially when it comes to money. Rachel's been married to David for 3 years. He's an accountant, calm, methodical, and way more patient than me. We actually get along better than Rachel and I do. Dave and I both value structure and long-term thinking, so we naturally clicked. That always rubbed Rachel the wrong way, but she never said it out loud. A few months ago, Rachel and David started looking for a house. They had saved up for a down payment, and their mortgage application got approved. Our parents were thrilled. It felt like Rachel was finally settling down. She started texting me listings, asking questions about loan terms and escrow, trying to involve me like I was her unofficial advisor. That was new. I was cautiously optimistic. Maybe marriage was grounding her. Then, 3 weeks before closing, Rachel called me late at night, completely panicked. She'd taken out a $15,000 personal loan from an online lender about 9 months earlier. She used part of it to pay off credit cards, the rest on things like Botox, laser facials, and some high-end clothing. She still owed $12,000, and the interest was piling up. She never told David. She had planned to pay it off quietly before the house closed, but the balance hadn't budged. Now, she was afraid it would show up during underwriting or a final credit check. She didn't want advice. She wanted silence. She told me not to say a word if anyone asked or if David brought up debts. I was supposed to pretend I didn't know anything. She said she had it under control. I didn't respond right away. I was stunned. She didn't just expect me to keep a secret. She expected me to lie, not just to her husband, but potentially to the bank. That's not a harmless white lie. That's fraud. I told my husband, Matt, he's steady, no nonsense. He said I should stay far away from it. You don't owe anyone a lie, he told me, especially not when it could mess up their finances long term. You're not the villain for refusing to cover for her. The next day, I called Rachel back. I told her clearly I wasn't going to lie for her. I wasn't going to bring it up to David, but if I was asked directly, I wouldn't pretend. She started crying and hung up on me. She didn't talk to me for almost a week. No texts, no calls. Then one morning, she sent me a picture of a house with a caption like nothing had happened. I didn't push. I watched from the sidelines while she moved ahead with the purchase like everything was fine. A week before closing, Rachel hosted a dinner to celebrate. She invited our parents, some friends, and, of course, David. I sat there while he toasted her for being so smart with money and said he couldn't believe how much she had grown. Everyone smiled. Rachel beamed. I felt like someone had pressed a brick into my chest. I excused myself after dessert. I couldn't eat. I barely made it out of the driveway before I pulled over and sat there for 20 minutes, just staring out the windshield. I wasn't going to lie, but was I really going to sit by and watch this lie go through? The next morning, I called David and asked if we could meet. I said it was about something important and that I wanted to talk before the closing. We met at a coffee shop near his office. I brought my phone. I showed him the messages Rachel had sent me about the loan, the breakdown of the balance, her asking me to lie, its entire timeline. He didn't yell. He didn't freak out. He just sat there reading, his face completely still. I told him I hadn't come to blow things up or ruin anything. I just couldn't stay silent while a decision this big was being made under false pretenses. I said I knew it wasn't my marriage, not my house, not my business, but I also knew that if I did nothing and this loan came out later, the damage would be worse. He closed the screen and looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "Thank you," and that was it. He left with his coffee still half full. I walked back to my car and sat down. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel good. I just knew there was no turning back. The next morning, David texted me. He said he'd slept on it, looked through everything again, and wanted to thank me. He said I'd helped him avoid signing his future away. That was all he said, but I knew from the tone that something had shifted. That evening, Rachel came to my house without warning. She didn't knock, just walked right in. She was shaking with anger, pacing in the kitchen, calling me a traitor. She said David had pulled out of the house deal, canceled everything. She said I'd ruined her life and destroyed her chance at a fresh start. She didn't ask if what I did was true. She already knew. She wanted someone to blame. She demanded to know why I would do this to her. She called me cold, said I always thought I was better than her. I didn't yell back. I just told her I wasn't going to lie for her. She made the choices. She could deal with the consequences. She called it betrayal. Said family should stick together no matter what. Then she left, slammed the door. I didn't hear from her again for a while. A few days later, I heard from our cousin. Rachel had moved out of her and David's apartment. She was staying with a friend. She told people David was overreacting, that it was just a loan, that everyone had debts, that he was being dramatic because I got involved and poisoned things. David never went public with anything. He called the realtor and said there were financial issues and he couldn't move forward with the purchase. No drama, no details. Just like that, the deal fell through. Then I started getting weird texts from mutual friends. One of them asked if I was okay, said Rachel was saying some rough stuff. I didn't ask for details. I already knew what kind of story she was telling. I picked 2 of those friends who had reached out and sent them screenshots of the texts Rachel had sent me, the loan, her asking me to lie, everything. I didn't explain or defend myself. I just gave them the facts and told them they could decide what to believe. Both of them went quiet after that. One of them later messaged back and said she hadn't known it was that serious. She didn't say more, but the tone changed. Matt, my husband, stood by me through all of it. He said the same thing over and over. You told the truth. That should be the bare minimum. We locked down our own accounts just in case. Meanwhile, Rachel started posting on social media like her life was better than ever. Bottomless brunches, spa trips, weekend hotel stays, shopping bags with designer logos. She still owed 12 grand, but you wouldn't know it from the pictures. People started commenting how happy she looked. Someone even wrote, "Love this new chapter for you." David wasn't posting anything, but I heard from a friend that he'd started meeting with a lawyer. Not about divorce yet, just about making sure Rachel couldn't open anything in his name or tie him to future debts. Quiet steps, nothing loud or messy. Our parents didn't know what to do. My dad pulled me aside and told me I'd done the right thing. He didn't say it loud, but I could tell he meant it. My mom, she was more complicated. She said she wished I'd handled it differently, like maybe I could have gotten Rachel to come clean on her own. But even she admitted Rachel had crossed a line. For a while, things were just tense but quiet. Rachel wasn't talking to me. David wasn't giving updates. Our parents were walking on eggshells. I figured the worst was over. Then David called again. He asked if I could meet him. He'd gone through more of Rachel's financial records and found something else, something bigger, something that didn't make sense. He didn't want revenge. He just wanted clarity. He said he couldn't protect himself if he didn't understand what he was dealing with. He asked if I would help him go through what he'd found, just to make sure he wasn't missing anything. I told him I would, because Rachel's mess wasn't just about a loan anymore. It was bigger, and if what David was saying was true, we hadn't seen the full picture yet. A couple of weeks later, I met David again. We sat outside a coffee shop near his office. He looked tired, like he hadn't been sleeping much. He said he wished that loan had been the worst of it, but it wasn't. He'd gone through every account they shared, then pulled her credit report. That's when he found 3 more credit cards Rachel had never mentioned. One had a $9,000 balance, another was sitting at $5,000, the third was newer but already close to maxed out. He also found purchases made using buy now, pay later apps, high-end bags, jewelry, spa treatments, luxury skincare. It wasn't just 1 or 2 splurges. She'd been doing it for months, over and over. The charges lined up with the designer stuff she kept posting online. When David asked her about it, she told him he always judged her for spending money, saying she wanted to enjoy life after feeling stuck for years. She said she wanted to feel normal again, that she had been stuck for too long during the pandemic and was just trying to enjoy life again. David had been covering rent, utilities, and their shared subscriptions. Rachel was supposed to handle daily expenses, groceries, gas, odds and ends, but instead, she used that flexibility to rack up debt behind his back. Rachel told friends that David was too controlling, that he tracked her every dollar and made her feel like a child. A few of them believed it, until David showed them the actual numbers and they realized how much debt she'd secretly racked up behind his back. Suddenly, the sympathy dried up. Our parents tried to stay neutral, but the cracks were showing. My dad stopped calling Rachel completely. My mom, who always defended her no matter what, finally admitted she didn't know what to say anymore. At a cousin's baby shower, Rachel showed up in a head-to-toe designer outfit. She didn't look at me once, didn't speak. She sat with a different group and acted like I didn't exist. I stayed out of her way. People started asking questions. A few relatives came up to me in the kitchen and said they'd heard things. I didn't go into detail. I just said Rachel was going through something, and I hope she figured it out soon. David had already moved into a friend's guest room. He separated all joint accounts, froze their shared credit cards, and changed his passwords. He removed Rachel's name from everything he could without legal action. And then, one night, I got a text from Rachel, no greeting, just, "You didn't help, you made it worse." I deleted it without replying. The next morning, David called. He said he found something else, a bank account Rachel never told him about. It was under her name only. He said there were deposits showing up regularly, but the sources didn't make sense. Some were listed as cash gifts. Others came through apps with random names attached. He wasn't sure what it meant yet, but it didn't feel right. He asked if I'd be willing to help dig into it, not to dig dirt, just so he could protect himself if anything serious came up later. I told him I'd help because Rachel wasn't just lying about a loan or hiding a credit card. She was unraveling everything, her marriage, her finances, her relationships, and now she was dragging people with her. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about cleaning up the mess she left behind and making sure no one else got pulled under. David asked me to come over one evening. He had something to show me. It was a printed bank statement from an account Rachel had opened 2 years into their marriage. The account was never disclosed to him. He found it while going through some of her saved browser logins on their old laptop. The account had over $9,000 in it. The deposits came regularly, small amounts every few days. Most were labeled cash gifts or came through third-party payment apps. A few had names attached that David didn't recognize. He Googled some of them and found nothing concrete, but the pattern didn't look random. The withdrawals lined up with a trail of luxury spending. Hotel bookings under aliases, high-end boutiques, prepaid Visa cards, online gift shops. None of this had shown up on their joint statements. These were things Rachel had kept entirely separate. One charge stood out, a payment to a vague lifestyle service. David didn't know what that meant at first. He clicked through the confirmation email and landed on a discreet booking platform for upscale escort meetups. He wasn't making accusations. He just laid out what he found, the secrecy, the vague labels, the expensive lifestyle, all funded through this account. He showed me screenshots from the email attached to it. The inbox had several threads referencing clients, appointments, and preferred meeting windows. No names, no photos, but it didn't sound like retail or party planning. David didn't want to confront her at home. He arranged to meet Rachel in a public cafe. I came too, but waited outside in case things got out of hand. Rachel showed up dressed like she was going to a brunch photo shoot. She looked annoyed, not concerned. When David asked about the account, she rolled her eyes and said it was freelance income. He asked what kind. She gave 3 different answers in 5 minutes: event planning, virtual consulting, social media coordination. None of it matched the deposit records or transaction history. When he asked for actual proof, like contracts, invoices, or references, she shut down, accused him of being paranoid, and said he was twisting things. She left before he could say more. Later that night, David told me it was over. That conversation confirmed it. He couldn't believe anything she said anymore. He said he'd be hiring a forensic accountant to audit their financial history just to make sure nothing else was hiding. The next day, our mother called. She was upset David had gone through Rachel's accounts. I told her calmly that he had every right to know what was happening with his own household finances, and if Rachel had nothing to hide, then why the secret bank account? David didn't wait. He locked down everything, froze the last remaining joint accounts, changed every password, and called to have Rachel removed from shared memberships and subscriptions, even gym accounts and airline miles. At that point, it wasn't about catching her in another lie. It was about protecting himself from whatever she might try next. Rachel's former co-worker, Jessica, reached out to me unexpectedly. She had left their company months ago, but said there was something I needed to know. She didn't waste time. Rachel had been under internal investigation before quitting her job. Jessica said it started with a company credit card. Someone from accounting noticed Rachel was logging expensive charges as client-related, but the amounts didn't match up. High-end restaurants, boutique hotel bookings, midweek spa days, salon treatments. There were no clients listed on those reports. It hadn't officially started yet, but word had spread internally. Rachel found out and resigned before it turned formal. According to Jessica, HR decided not to pursue it. They didn't want the situation becoming public or getting messy. At the time, Rachel had told everyone, including David, that she left because of toxic leadership and a hostile work culture. She even posted a photo of a goodbye cake with the caption, "On to better things." Jessica still had screenshots of the internal memo that mentioned Rachel by name. It confirmed she was the reason the company tightened its reimbursement policy. Across departments, I told David that night. He wasn't shocked. He was used to finding out Rachel's version of events always left something out. He pulled out her final paycheck stub and showed me a deduction labeled adjustment. No explanation, just a flat $1,800 removed from her gross total. He figured that was the quiet repayment. He confronted her the next day. She brushed it off, called it gossip, said Jessica was bitter, then turned it back on me, accused me of spreading lies because I was jealous of her freedom. Our father heard the full story later that week. For the first time, he said he was done backing her up. He didn't say much after that, just shook his head. Our mom didn't defend her either. She stayed quiet. Matt said more than anything. Matt asked me if I was ready to cut contact entirely. I told him I would once David had things in order. It had stopped being about sibling arguments. Rachel's behavior was tipping into fraud. David met with a divorce attorney. The first consultation was straightforward. He wanted to untangle everything financial, separate liabilities, and protect himself from any more surprises. They started the paperwork that same week. Rachel didn't respond to the legal notice. No calls, no texts, just silence, though I expected at least a challenge. She usually didn't go down quietly. Her name was still on a few bills, but she made no effort to communicate. The longer she stayed quiet, the more David pushed forward. A mutual acquaintance ran into her at a bar, said Rachel had been drinking and venting loudly about how everyone turned on her and how no one gave her a chance to explain. She was blaming me, blaming David, blaming our parents, blaming the system, everyone but herself. A week later, David submitted the separation paperwork. No arguments, no negotiations, no reaction from Rachel. She didn't show up, she didn't contest anything. It wasn't closure, it was disappearance. David's attorney dug into more records as part of the divorce prep. One of the first red flags popped up in Rachel's old tax returns. There was an employer listed for one of the years that didn't exist. No business license, no registration, no website, nothing. It turned out Rachel had created a fake freelance business name and claimed it as income. The numbers matched exactly what she listed on their mortgage application, which meant she'd faked the income to look more stable. If the mortgage had gone through, both she and David could have been investigated for document fraud. He dodged a bullet. That hidden bank account with over $9,000 also missing from the financial disclosures. Rachel never reported it in the joint paperwork, and none of the deposits had been mentioned during their pre-approval process. Another problem that could have caused legal issues if the bank found out after signing. Rachel told a mutual friend it was just side money and that David was blowing it out of proportion. She claimed he was obsessed with painting her as unstable. That excuse didn't hold long. David found out she had opened a department store credit account in his name without telling him. $3,500 limit, fully maxed out and never paid. He filed a police report for identity misuse. He didn't press charges, but he needed the report on record in case anything else turned up. The lawyer advised him to build a paper trail now, not after more damage was done. Soon after that, I got a voicemail from one of Rachel's last loyal friends. She said I was a snake, that I turned on my own sister, and that I was letting a man tear my family apart. I deleted it, no response, no explanation. I was done defending myself. Matt had reached his limit too. He sat me down and made it clear Rachel was not welcome in our home again. No visits, no cooling, off periods, no conversations. We changed every password and enabled every security alert on our accounts. Then came the barbecue. It was supposed to be a simple family gathering, grilled food, kids running around, people catching up. Rachel wasn't invited. She came anyway. She waited until everyone was settled and then walked right up to David. She started yelling in front of everyone, accusing him of ruining her life, saying he was heartless, that the divorce was punishment for being too independent. Her voice kept rising until the kids started crying. My uncle stepped in and physically guided her toward the gate. She didn't fight him, just kept shouting over her shoulder. The whole party went silent after that. The music stopped. Plates were left half full. People quietly started leaving. Afterward, my mother sat on the porch without saying much. Eventually, she whispered, "This is not the daughter I raised." She didn't ask for explanations. She just shook her head and walked back inside. Most of the extended family backed off after that. No drama, no group chats, just distance. Rachel had burned too many bridges too fast. David officially filed for divorce the next week. His lawyer said the history of deception would give him solid standing in court, especially regarding asset division. She hadn't contributed equally, hadn't disclosed accounts, and had used his identity without permission. Just when I thought it was finally quiet again, I opened a letter from a collections agency. Rachel had listed me as a reference for an $8,000 loan she never paid. They were now trying to contact me for information. I wasn't a co-signer. I had no involvement, but my name was in their system. And just like that, even after the separation, Rachel still found a way to drag me back in. The collections letter came in a plain envelope. Rachel had listed me as a reference on an $8,000 personal loan from 6 months ago. She'd missed 3 payments, and now the agency was warning they might start calling me. They said they'd only reached out after repeated failed attempts to contact her directly. I wasn't a co-signer. I hadn't even known about the loan. I called the agency immediately, told them I had nothing to do with it, demanded they remove my contact info from all records. They agreed, but not before warning that if she defaulted completely, my name might keep popping up in their system. Matt was furious. We spoke to a lawyer who explained that while my name had been misused, it didn't count as fraud unless Rachel had forged a signature. There was no evidence of that, just her using me as a reference without consent. I told my parents. My dad, who hadn't spoken to her in weeks, just stared at the floor, then said she wasn't coming back from this. My mom didn't argue. 2 weeks later, David's divorce finalized. He kept the car, his retirement accounts, and all personal property. Rachel got nothing. They shared no spousal support, no assets. Her legal team didn't contest anything. She signed every document remotely and disappeared from the process completely. David's lawyer said she left their apartment the day after receiving the papers, never came back. I went through every shared login and cloud account I could think of. Scrubbed my name, updated passwords, removed access, deleted old contact. Anything she could have used, I cut off. Then things went quiet for weeks. No calls, no new surprises, no drama. Until one afternoon, she showed up in the parking garage at my office. I hadn't seen her in person since the barbecue. She stood in front of my car, arms folded, just watching me. She didn't yell, didn't cry, just said I did what I had to do, then asked for $2,000 to cover a final debt and help her move on. I told her no, I wasn't giving her money, I wasn't giving her advice, I wasn't going to explain again why things turned out the way they did. I told her she'd burned every lifeline I could offer. She nodded. No fight, just turned and walked out of the garage. That was the last time I saw her. Life didn't magically go back to normal, but it calmed. Matt and I took a short trip, just a weekend somewhere quiet. No phones, no updates. David reached out once, said, "Thank you again." He'd moved to a smaller place, closer to work, no interest in dating, just wanted peace. He sounded steady, that was enough. I didn't mention it when I heard Rachel had moved out of state. A cousin brought it up during a birthday dinner. I let it pass. There have been no calls, no texts, no new loans in my name. She's gone quiet, and for the first time, that's exactly what we needed.